Hello everyone! Today we will have a new lesson about programming languages that start with letter C. C-ISO or IEC 9899. C is a general-purpose procedural computer programming language supporting structured programming, lexical variable scope, and recursion with a static type system. By design, C provides constructs that map efficiently to typical machine instructions. It has found lasting use in applications previously coded in assembly language. Such applications include operating systems and various application software for computer architectures that range from supercomputers to PLCs and embedded systems. A successor to the programming language B, C was originally developed at Bell Labs by Dennis Ritchie between 1972 and 1973 to construct utilities running on Unix. It was applied to re-implementing the kernel of the Unix operating system. C++. C++ is a C-like programming language. Its creators, functional programming researchers Simon Peyton-Jones and Norman Ramsey, designed it to be generated mainly by compilers for very high-level languages rather than written by human programmers. Unlike many other intermediate languages, its representation is plain ASCII text, not bytecode or another binary format. There are two main branches of C++. One is the original C++ branch, with the final version 2.0 released in May 2005. The other is the CMM fork actively used by the Glasgow Haskell compiler as its intermediate representation. C++ under ISO/IEC 14882. C++ is a general-purpose programming language created by Bjorn Straustorp as an extension of the C programming language, or C, with classes. The language has expanded significantly over time, and modern C++ now has object-oriented, generic, and functional features in addition to facilities for low-level memory manipulation. It is almost always implemented as a compiled language, and many vendors provide C++ compilers, including the Free Software Foundation, LLVM, Microsoft, Intel, Oracle, and IBM, so it is available on many platforms. C** or C**. C** or C* is an object-oriented, data parallel superset of ANSI with synchronous semantics. It was developed in 1987 as an alternative language to CLIST and CM-Fortran for the connection machine as CM-2 and above. The language C* adds to C a domain, data type, and a selection statement for parallel execution in domains. C# under ISO/IEC 23270. C# like the musical note, but written with the number sign, is a general-purpose multi-paradigm programming language encompassing static typing, strong typing, lexical scope, imperative, declarative, functional, generic, object-oriented or class-based, and component-oriented programming disciplines. C# was developed around 2000 by Microsoft as part of its .NET initiative and later approved as an international standard by ECMA or ECMA-334 in 2002 and ISO under ISO/IEC 23270 in 2003. It was designed by Anders Hejdsberg, and its development team is currently led by Mads Torgersen, being one of the programming languages designed for the Common Language Infrastructure or CLI. CIAL. CIAL or Client Server Application Language was the programming language used within CSIDE, the Client-Server Integrated Development Environment in Microsoft Dynamics NAV, formerly known as Navision Attain, and Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central up until or including version 14, and it has been replaced by AL. CIAL is a database-specific programming language and is primarily used for retrieving, inserting, and modifying records in a Navision database. CIAL resembles the Pascal language on which it is based. The original CIAL compiler was written by Michael Nielsen. Caché ObjectScript. Caché ObjectScript is a part of the cache database system sold by Intersystems. The language is a functional superset of the ANSI standard MUMPS programming language. Since cache is at its core a MUMPS implementation, it can run ANSI MUMPS routines with no change. To appeal as a commercial product, Caché implements support for object-oriented programming, a macro-processing language, embedded SQL for ANSI standard SQL access to M's built-in database, procedure, and control blocks using C-like press syntax, procedure scope variables, and relaxed whitespace syntax limitations. C shell. The C shell is a Unix shell created by Bill Joy while he was a graduate student at University of California, Berkeley in the late 1970s. It has been widely distributed, beginning with the 2BSD release of the Berkeley Software Distribution or BSD, which Joy first distributed in 1978. Other early contributors to the ideas or the code were Michael Ubel, Eric Ullman, Mike O'Brien, and Gene Cook. The C shell is a command processor typically run in a text window, allowing the user to type commands. The C shell can also read commands from a file, called a script. Like all Unix shells, it supports file name wildcarding, piping, where command substitution, variables, and control structures for testing and iteration. COM. COMAL, originally an acronym for Categorical Abstract Machine Language, is a general-purpose programming language which is a dialect of the ML programming language family. COMAL was developed in France and in RIA and ANS. COMAL is statically typed, strictly evaluated, and uses automatic memory management. COMAL, the main descendant of COMAL, adds many features to the language, including an object layer. Cayenne. Cayenne is a dependently typed functional programming language created by Leonard Augustin in 1998, making it one of the earliest dependently typed programming languages as opposed to proof assistance or logical frameworks. The Cayenne implementation was written in Haskell and it also translated to Haskell, but is currently no longer being maintained. Seduce. Seduce is an XML-oriented functional language which extends Xdus in a few directions. It features XML regular expression types, XML regular expression patterns, XML iterators. Seduce is not, strictly speaking, an XML transformation language, since it can be used for general-purpose programming. Seduce conforms to basic standards. Unicode, XML, DTD, namespaces are fully supported. XML schema is partially supported. CIAL. CIAL is a pure object-oriented programming language that was developed by Craig Chambers at the University of Washington in 1992 to be part of the Vortex project there. CIAL has many similarities to other object-oriented languages, most notably Objective-C, Modular-3, and Self. The main goals of the project were extensibility, orthogonality, efficiency, and ease of use. CIAL. CIAL, our computer education in schools instruction language, was a programming language designed to introduce pupils in British schools to assembly language. It is a low-level language containing a total of 14 instructions. CIAL. CIAL is structured synchronous reactive programming. According to its webpage, CIAL supports synchronous concurrency with shared memory and deterministic execution and has a small memory footprint. Cilk. Cilk was an object-oriented, strongly statically typed programming language with an emphasis on immutability created by Red Hat. Cilk programs run on the Java Virtual Machine or JVM and could be compiled to JavaScript. The language design focuses on source code readability, predictability, toolability, modularity, and metaprogrammability. The name Cilk is an oblique reference to Java, in that Java and Sri Lanka, formerly known as Ceylon, are islands known for growth and export of coffee and tea. CFEngine. CFEngine is an open-source configuration management system written by Mark Burgess. Its primary function is to provide automated configuration and maintenance of large-scale computer systems, including the unified management of servers, desktops, consumer industrial devices, embedded network devices, mobile smartphones, and tablet computers. CG. CG, short for C for Graphics and High-Level Shading Language or HLSL, are two names given to a high-level shading language developed by NVIDIA and Microsoft for programming and shaders. CG or HLSL is based on the C programming language, and although they share the same core syntax, some features of C were modified and new data types were added to make CG or HLSL more suitable for programming graphics processing units. CH. CH is a proprietary cross-platform C and C++ interpreter and scripting language environment, originally designed by Harry H. Cheng as a scripting language for beginners to learn mathematics, computing, numerical analysis or numeric methods, and programming in C or C++. CH is now developed and marketed by Self-Integration Corporation. A student edition is freely available. CH Professional Edition for Raspberry Pi is free for non-commercial use. Chapel. Chapel, the Cascade High Productivity Language, is a parallel programming language developed by Cray. It is being developed as part of the Cray Cascade Project, a participant in DARPA's High Productivity Computing Systems or HPCS program, which had the goal of increasing supercomputer productivity by the year 2010. It is being developed as an open source project under version of the 2 Apache license. Charm. Charm is a computer programming language devised in the early 1990s with similarities to the RTL2, Pascal, and C languages, in addition to containing some unique features of its own. The Charm language is defined by a context-free grammar amenable to being processed by recursive descent parser as described in seminal books on compiler design. A set of Charm tools, including a compiler, assembler, and linker, released for the Acorn market, has been reviewed in Acure User magazine under the category Programming Software. Charm rework for RISC OS platforms has subsequently been reviewed in Archive magazine. Cilk. In computing, Cilk, or an acronym for CCITT High-Level Language, is a procedural programming language designed for use in telecommunication switches in the hardware used inside telephone exchanges. The language is still used for legacy systems in some telecommunication companies and for signal box programming. The Cilk language is similar in size and complexity to the original Ada language. The first specification of the Cilk language was published in 1980, a few years before Ada. CIP8. CIP8 is an interpreted programming language developed by Joseph Weisbecker. It was initially used on the COSMAC PIP and Telmac 18008 8-bit microcomputers in the mid-1970s. CIP8 programs are run on a CIP8 virtual machine. It was made to allow video games to be more easily programmed for these computers. Roughly 15 years after CIP8 was introduced, derived interpreters appeared for some models of graphing calculators from the late 1980s onward. These handheld devices in many ways have more computing power than most mid-1970s microcomputers for hobbies. An active community of users and developers existed in the late 1970s, beginning with Aresco's PIP newsletter, whose first 3 issues revealed the machine code behind the CIP8 interpreter. Chomski. Pattern parsing virtual machine, previously called Chomsky after Noam Chomsky, and PEP refer to both a command line computer language and utility or interpreter for that language, which can be used to parse and transform text patterns and languages or formal mathematical languages. The utility reads input files character by character sequentially, applying the operation which has been specified by the command line or a PEP script, and then outputs the line. It was developed from 2006 in the C language. Chalk. Chalk is a concurrent, strongly timed audio programming language for real-time synthesis, composition, and performance, which runs on Linux, Mac OS X, Microsoft Windows, and iOS. It is designed to favor readability and flexibility for the programmer over other considerations, such as raw performance. It natively supports deterministic concurrency and multiple simultaneous dynamic control rates. Another key feature is the ability to live code, adding, removing, and modifying code on the fly while the program is running without stopping or restarting. It offers composers and researchers a powerful and flexible programming tool for building and experimenting with complex audio synthesis programs and real-time interactive control. Chalk was created and chiefly designed by Qi Wang as a graduate student working with Perry R. Cook. Cilk. Cilk, Cilk++, and Cilk Plus are generally purpose programming languages designed for multi-threaded parallel computing. They are based on the C and C++ programming languages, which they extend with constructs to express parallel loops and the fork join idiom. Originally developed in the 1990s at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology or MIT, in the group of Charles E. Lisserson, Cilk was later commercialized as Cilk++ by a spin-off company, Cilk Arts. That company was subsequently acquired by Intel, which increased compatibility with existing C and C++ code, calling the result Cilk+. CL under IBM. The IBM iControl language or CL is a scripting language for the IBM's IBM i platform or previously called OS400 when running on AS400 systems, bearing a resemblance to the IBM job control language and consisting of an ever-expanding set of command objects or CMD used to invoke traditional AS400 programs and or get help on what those programs do. CL can also be used to create shell programs congruent to shell scripts, where there are additional commands that provide program-like functionality if else. CL can also be used to create shell programs like the functionality if else, a variable declaration, file input, and so on. Clair. Clair is a high-level functional and object-oriented programming language with rule processing abilities. It was designed by Ives, Caché, and Boygas E-Lab Research Laboratory and received its final definition in 2004. Clair's reference implementation, consisting of an interpreter and compiler, was fully open source with the release of version 3.3.46 in February 2009. Another implementation, WebClair, is commercially supported. Clarion. Clarion is a commercial, proprietary, fourth-generation programming language for GL multi-paradigm programming language and integrated development environment or IDE from Soft Velocity used to program database applications. It is compatible with Index Sequential Access Method or ISAM, Structured Query Language or SQL, and ActiveX data objects or ADO. Data access methods, reads and writes several flat file desktop database formats including ASCII, comma separated values or CSV, DOS or binary, FACS-Pro, Clipper, DBase, and some relational databases via ODBC, Microsoft SQL Server, Sybase SQL Anywhere, and Oracle Database through the use of accelerated native database drivers and XML. Clarion can be used to output to XML, plain text, and parsable document format or PDF, and among others. Clean. Clean is a general-purpose, purely functional computer programming language. For much of the language's active development history, it was called concurrent Clean, but this was dropped at some point. Clean is being developed by a group of researchers from the Radboud University in Michigan since 1987. Clipper. Clipper is an X-based compiler that implements a variant of the X-based computer programming language. It is used to create or extend software programs that originally operated primarily under MS-DOS. Although it is a powerful general-purpose programming language, it was primarily used to create database or business programs. Clipper from Nantucket Corp and later Computer Associates started out as a native code compiler for DBase-3 databases and later evolved. CLIPS. CLIPS is a public domain software tool for building expert systems. The name is an acronym for C Language Integrated Production System. The syntax and name was inspired by Charles Ford's OPS 5. The first versions of CLIPS were developed starting in 1985 at NASA Johnson Space Center or as an alternative for existing system art inference until the mid-1990s when the development group's responsibilities ceased to focus on expert system technology. The original name of the project was NASA's AI Language or NAIL. CLIPS is probably the most widely used expert system tool. CLIPS itself is written in C, extensions can be written in C, and CLIPS can be called from C. Its syntax resembles that of the programming language Lisp. CLIPS incorporates a complete object-oriented language for writing expert systems. COOL combines the programming paradigms of procedural, object-oriented, and logical or theorem-proving language. CLIST. CLIST or command list, pronounced CLIST, is a procedural programming language for TSO in MBS systems. It originated in OS 360, release 20, and has assumed a secondary role since the availability of Rex in TSOE version 2. The term CLIST is also used for command lists written by users of NetView. In its basic form, a CLIST program, or CLIST for short, can take the form of a simple list of commands to be executed on strict sequence like a DOS batch file. Clojure. Clojure is a modern, dynamic, and functional dialect of the Lisp programming language on the Java platform. Like other Lisp dialects, Clojure treats code as data and has a Lisp macro system. The current development process is community-driven, overseen by Rich Hickey as its benevolent dictator for life. Clue. Clue is a programming language created at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology or MIT by Barbara Liskov and her students between 1974 and 1975. While it did not find extensive use, it introduced many features that are used widely now and is seen as a step in the development of object-oriented programming or OOP. Key contributions include abstract data types, call by sharing, iterators, multiple return values or a form of parallel assignment, type-safe parameterized types, and type-safe variant types. CMS2 CMS2 is an embedded systems programming language used by the United States Navy. It was an early attempt to develop a standardized high-level computer programming language intended to improve code portability and reusability. CMS2 was developed primarily for the U.S. Navy's Tactical Data Systems or NTDS. CMS2 was developed by RAND Corporation in the early 1970s and stands for Compiler Monitor System. The name CMS2 is followed in literature by a letter designating target system. COBOL under ISO/IEC 1989. COBOL, an acronym for Common Business Oriented Language, is a compiled English-like computer programming language designed for business use. It is imperative, procedural, and since 2002 object-oriented. COBOL is primarily used in business, finance, and administrative systems for companies and governments. COBOL is still widely used in applications deployed on mainframe computers such as large-scale batch and transaction processing jobs. Most programming in COBOL is now purely to maintain existing applications. However, many large financial institutions were still developing new systems in COBOL in 2006 due to the mainframe processing speed. COBOL was designed in 1959 by CODASIL and was partly based on the programming language Flowmatic designed by Grace Hopper. CoBoL or COBOL scripting language. CoBoL is a programming language created by Matthew Dean and Charles Shred of the Square in 1999. The language was intended to provide web-enabled COBOL and was targeted at businesses using legacy software written in that language. COBRA. COBRA is a discontinued general-purpose, object-oriented programming language. COBRA is designed by Charles Estabrook and runs on the Microsoft.NET and Mono platforms. It is strongly influenced by Python, C#, Eiffel, Objective-C, and other programming languages. It supports both static and dynamic typing. It has support for unit tests and contracts. It has lambda expressions, closures, list comprehensions, and generators. COBRA is an open source project. It was released under the MIT license on February 29, 2008. CoffeeScript. CoffeeScript is a programming language that compiles to JavaScript. It adds syntactic sugar inspired by Ruby, Python, and Haskell in an effort to enhance JavaScript's brevity and readability. Specific additional features include list comprehension and structuring assignment. CoffeeScript support is included in Ruby on Rails version 3.1 and Play framework. In 2011, Brendan H. referenced CoffeeScript as an influence on his thoughts about the future of JavaScript. ColdFusion. Adobe ColdFusion is a commercial rapid web application development computing platform created by J.J. Allaire in 1995. The programming language used with that platform is also commonly called ColdFusion, though is more accurately known as CFML. ColdFusion was originally designed to make it easier to connect simple HTML pages to a database. By version 2 on 1996, it became a full platform that included an IDE in addition to a full scripting language. COMAL. COMAL, or Common Algorithmic Language, is a computer programming language developed in Denmark by Børge R. Christensen and Benedict Lofstil and originally released in 1975. COMAL was one of the few structured programming languages that was available for and comfortably usable on 8-bit home computers. It was based on the seminal basic programming language, adding multi-line statements and well-defined subroutines among other additions. COMAL kernel syntax and semantics contains the formal definition of the language. Further extensions are common to many implementations. Combined Programming Language or CPL. CPL or Combined Programming Language is a multi-paradigm programming language that was developed in the early 1960s. It is an early ancestor of the C language via the BCPL and B languages. COMIT. Comet was the first string processing language compared Snowball, Track, and Perl, developed on the IBM 700-7000 series computers by Dr. Victor Yingbe and collaborators at MIT from 1957 to 1965. Yingbe created the language for supporting computerized research in the field of linguistics and more specifically the area of machine translation for natural language processing. The creation of Comet led to the creation of Snowball. Common Intermediate Language or CIL. Common Intermediate Language or CIL, formerly called Microsoft Intermediate Language or MSIL, or Intermediate Language or IL, is the intermediate language binary instruction set defined within the Common Language Infrastructure or CLI specification. CIL instructions are executed by CLI-compatible runtime environments such as the Common Language Runtime. CIL is object-oriented, stack-based bytecode. Runtimes typically just-in-time compile CIL instructions into native code. CIL was originally known as Microsoft Intermediate Language or MSIL during the beta releases of the .NET languages. Due to the standardization of C# and the CLI, the bytecode is now officially known as CIL. Windows Defender virus definitions continue to refer to binaries compiled with it as MSIL. Common Lisp, also known as CL. Common Lisp or CL is a dialect of the Lisp programming language published in ANSI Standard Document ANSI INCITS 226-1994 or S2008, formerly X3.226-1994 or R1999. The Common Lisp Hyperspec, a hyperlinked HTML version, has been derived from the ANSI Common Lisp standard. The Common Lisp language was developed as a standardized and improved successor of MacLisp. Compass. Compass Comprehensive Assembler is any of a family of macro assembly languages on Control Data Corporation's 3000 series and on the 60-bit CDC 6000 series, 7600 and Cypher 70 and 170 series mainframe computers. While the architectures are very different, the macro and conditional assembly facilities are similar. Component Pascal. Component Pascal is a programming language in the tradition of Nicholas Wirtz Pascal, Modula 2, Oberon, and Oberon 2. It bears the name of the Pascal programming language and it preserves its heritage, but it is not compatible with Pascal. Instead, it is a minor variant and refinement of Oberon 2 with a more expressive type system and built-in string support. Component Pascal was originally designed and supported by a small ETH Zurich spin-off company called Oberon Microsystems under the name Oberon L. They developed an IDE or integrated development environment called Blackbox Component Builder. Constraint Handling Rules or CHR. Constraint Handling Rules or CHR is a declarative, rule-based language introduced in 1991 by Tom Proworth at the time with ECRC or European Computer Industry Research Center in Munich, Germany. Originally intended for constraint programming, CHR finds applications in grammar induction, adaptive reasoning, multi-agent systems, natural language processing, compilation, scheduling, spatial-temporal reasoning, testing and verification, and type systems. A CHR program, sometimes called a constraint handler, is a set of rules that maintain a constraint store, a multi-set of logical formulas. Execution of rules may add or remove formulas from the store, thus changing the state of the program. The order in which rules fire on a given constraint store is non-deterministic, according to its abstract semantics, and deterministic top-down rule application according to its refined semantics. COMTRAN. COMTRAN, or Commercial Translator, is an early programming language developed at IBM. It was intended as the business programming equivalent of the scientific programming language, Fortran or Formula Translator. It served as one of the forerunners to the COBOL language. Developed by Bob Bemer in 1957, the language was the first to feature the programming language element known as a picture clause. COOL. COOL is an acronym for Classroom Object-Oriented Language. It's a computer programming language designed by Alexander Eichen for use in an undergraduate compiler course project. While small enough for a one-term project, COOL still has many of the features of the modern programming languages, including objects, automatic memory management, strong static typing, and simple reflection. The reference COOL compiler is written in C++, built fully on the public domain tools. It generates code for a MIPS simulator SPIM. Thus, the language should port easily to other platforms. It has been used for teaching compilers at many institutions, such as the University of California at Berkeley, where it was first used, or Shahid Beheshti University of Iran, and the software is stable. Co. Cilk is an interactive game prover first released in 1989. It allows for the expression of mathematical assertions, mechanically checks proofs of their assertions, helps to find formal proofs, and extracts a certified program from the constructive proof of its formal specification. Cilk works within the theory of the calculus of inductive constructions, a derivative of the calculus of constructions. Cilk is not an automated theorem prover but includes automatic theorem proving tactics or procedures and various decision procedures. Cilk is named after its principal developer, Thierry Cookman. Coral 66. Coral, short for Computer Online Real-Time Application Language, is a programming language originally developed in 1964 at the Royal Radar Establishment, or RRE, Malvern, Worcestershire, United Kingdom, or UK. The R was originally for radar, not real time. It was influenced primarily by Jovial and thus Algol, but is not a subset of either. The most widely known version, Coral 66, was subsequently developed by I. F. Curry and M. Griffiths under the auspices of the Inter-Establishment Committee for Computer Applications, or IECCA. Its official definition, edited by Woodward, Weatherall, and Gorman, was first published in 1970. CoreVision. CoreVision is a fourth-generation programming tool, or 4GL, currently owned by Attunity Corporation. CoreVision was developed by Cortex Corporation for the VAX or VMS ESAM environment. Although Cortex beta tested CoreVision 10, which was generated for PCs, but CoreVision itself stayed anchored on VMS. CoreVision 10 proved more difficult than hoped and was never released. COWSEL. COWSEL, or Controlled Working Space Language, is a programming language designed between 1964 and 1966 by Robin Popplestone. It was based on an RPN form of Lisp combined with some ideas from CPL. COWSEL was initially implemented on a Ferranti Pegasus computer at the University of Leeds and on a Stantec Zebra at the Bradford Institute of Technology. Later, Rod Burstall implemented it on an Elliott 4120 at the University of Edinburgh. COWSEL was renamed POP1 during the summer of 1966 and development continued under that name from then on. CPL. CPL, or Combined Programming Language, is a multi-paradigm programming language that was developed in the early 1960s. It is an early ancestor of the C language via the BCPL and B languages. Cryptol. Cryptol is a domain-specific programming language for cryptography developed by the Portland, Oregon-based software development firm Galois Incorporation. The language was originally developed for use by the United States National Security Agency. The language is also used by private firms that provide information technology systems such as the American company Rockwell Collins provides to aerospace and defense contractors in the United States. The programming language is used for all aspects of developing and using cryptography, such as the design and implementation of new ciphers and the verification of existing cryptographic algorithms. Cryptol is designed to allow the cryptographer to watch how stream processing function in the program manipulate the ciphers or encryption algorithms. Crystal. Crystal is a general-purpose object-oriented programming language designed and developed by Ari Borensweg, Juan Wajnerman, Brian Cardiff, and more than 300 contributors. With syntax inspired by the language Ruby, it is a compiled language with static type checking, but specifying the types of variables or method arguments is generally unneeded. Crystal is currently in active development. It is released as free and open source software under the Apache license version 2.0. CSound. CSound is a domain-specific computer programming language for audio programming. It is called CSound because it is written in C as opposed to some of its predecessors. It is free software available under the LGPL. CSound was originally written at MIT by Barry Berkow in 1985 based on his earlier system called Music 11, which in its turn followed the Music M model initiated by Max Matthews at the Bell Labs. Cuneiform. Cuneiform is an open-source workflow language for large-scale scientific data analysis. It is a statically typed functional programming language promoting parallel computing. It features a versatile foreign function interface allowing users to integrate software from many external programming languages. At the organizational level, Cuneiform provides facilities like conditional branching and general recursion, making it Turing complete. In this, Cuneiform is the attempt to close the gap between scientific workflow systems like Taberna, Mime, or Galaxy, and large-scale data analysis programming models like MapReduce or Pig-Latin, while offering the generality of a functional programming language. Curl. Curl is a reflective object-oriented programming language for interactive web applications whose goal is to provide a smoother transition between formatting and programming. It makes it possible to embed complex objects in simple documents without needing to switch between programming languages or development platforms. The Curl implementation initially consisted of just an interpreter, but a compiler was added later. Curl combines text markup as in HTML, scripting as in JavaScript, and heavy-duty computing as in Java, C# or C++ within one unified framework. It is used in a range of internal enterprise, B2B, and B2C applications. Query. Query is an experimental functional logic programming language based on the Haskell language. It merges elements of functional and logic programming, including constraint programming integration. It is nearly a superset of Haskell, lacking support mostly for overloading using type classes, which some implementations provide anyway as a language extension, such as the Monster Query compiler. CIAL. CIAL, short for the Cyber Implementation Language of the Control Data Network Operating System, was a Pascal-like language developed at Control Data Corporation for the cyber computer family. CIAL was used as the implementation language for the NOS VE operating system on the CDC Cyber series and was also used to write the EOS operating system for the ETA-10 supercomputer in the 1980s. Cyclone. The Cyclone programming language is intended to be a safe dialect of the C language. Cyclone is designed to avoid buffer overflows and other vulnerabilities that are possible in C programs, without losing the power and convenience of C as a tool for system programming. Cyclone development was started as a joint project of AT&T Labs Research and Greg Morisset's group at Kernel in 2001. Version 1.0 was released on May 8, 2006. Cypher Query Language. Cypher is a declarative graph query language that allows for expressive and efficient data querying in a property graph. Cypher was largely an invention of Andre Taylor while working for Neo4j Incorporation, formerly Neo Technology, in 2011. Cypher was originally intended to be used with the graph database Neo4j, but was opened up through the Open Cypher project in October 2015. The language was designed with the power and capability of SQL or Standard Query Language for the relational database model in mind, but Cypher was based on the components and needs of a database built upon the concepts of graph theory. In a graph model, data is structured as nodes or vertices in math and network science, and relationships or edges in math and network science, to focus on how entities in the data are connected and related to one another. Cython. Cython is a programming language that aims to be a superset of the Python programming language, designed to give C-like performance with code that is written mostly in Python with optional additional C-inspired syntax. Cython is a compiled language that is typically used to generate CPython extension modules. Cython also facilitates wrapping independent C or C++ code into Python importable modules. Cython is written in Python and C and works on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, producing source files compatible with CPython 2.6, 2.7, and 3.3 through 3.8. Cython 3.0.0 is in development. CMAC. CMAC is a programming language developed in the 1980s for the Apple II family of computers. It was authored by Brooke Boring and published by Vagabundo Enterprises. CMAC was designed to be a visual composition language in which the programmer designed dynamic scores by programmatically controlling color, shape, sound, and movement. Additionally, a programmer could then perform their score through use of the Apple II keyboard or paddle input devices to introduce additional variation. That's all for the discussion about the programming languages that starts with letter C. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.